Shalom again, everybody. Ariel Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School, found online at www.KosherTorah.com, bringing to you today's daily lesson in the Sefer Yetzirah. Today is lesson 95, second to the last in our series, dedicated today, as this whole series has been, to the safety, health, well-being, blessing, prosperity, goodness, and all good stuff. To everybody out there in the trials and tribulations that we're facing at these most curious times, and let's just throw in all other times as well. Okay, we are now going to address the final Mishnah of our book. And it's not necessarily going to teach us new techniques. We've already learned them. But it's going to introduce to us something here about the universality of the material that we've been learning. Let's review. Chapter 1 taught us the great unity, the 32 wondrous paths, and how they are originally energetic sephirot, how these then materialize through the vessels of letters. We said that the combinations and forms of letters make everything. And then we divided those letters into three different sections: mothers, doubles, and elementals. And then we discussed the nature of how they're all applied in the greater worlds. That's the book. Real simple. But you'll notice something very curious absent from this book, from all other Kabbalistic texts. And that is, nowhere does this book speak about anything overtly Jewish. Nowhere is there a real reference to the Torah, Moses, Jewish law, Judaism, or the children of Israel. Nothing about the Sinai covenant at all. What we have here, and what you now have before you, is a universal code, not of theology and doctrine and dogma, what to believe and not to believe, but rather what to practice and what not to practice, outside of a specific ethnic-oriented religion. The only thing that makes the Sefer Yetzirah Jewish is that it comes down to us in the form and structure of Hebrew. You'll notice it's not even Aramaic like later Kabbalah. It speaks of the forms and the letters being 22 in number, therefore making the paths 32. And we've associated that number 32 with different Torah-related things. The word heart is spelled Lamed Bet. The first letter of the Torah is, of course, Bet. The last letter of the Torah is Lamed. When you put it together, it's the circle. Remember, we discussed that instead of the Lamed being after the Bet at the end, it's actually before the Bet at the beginning, and that spells heart. So the Torah is the heart. We got all that kind of stuff. But a point that we've made is that, as we've said in other literature, there is what we call black fire on white fire, that the shapes around the black letters form their own letters, which are not Hebrew, which would make the numbers of our letters 44 and not 22. And add one for the number, you get 45, which is Adam, man. Again, this is all Hebrew and therefore associated with something Israelite or Jewish. But the underlying teachings of this transcend far beyond that. And that is the message of this last Mishnah of this book. It states here, Kesheba Avraham Avinu alav shalom, and when Abraham our father, upon him be peace, hebit oreh, when he came in and contemplated these things, and he saw, vehivin, and understood, v'hakar, and explored, v'hakak, and engraved, v'chatzav, and carved, v'alta biyado habariyah, and there arose in his hands creation. And here pretty much is the only reference to a Torah verse that we have. Shene'emar, as it is written, Ve'et hanefesh asher asu beharan. And this is what it means in the Bible when it says, and the souls that he made in the city of Haran. Now, before we get into other details about Abraham, let's talk about him from the biblical point of view. Who is he? What is he? What makes him so important? Well, remember this. He's the one who's considered the founder of them all. Remember, we had Adam, okay? Okay, we had later Noah. Enoch was kind of in and out, but he didn't come important until later. But then we got Abraham. Abraham's the big guy in the Bible. He started it all. But what did he start? He started a religious movement. You see, I take my pause and my breath because I'm not so sure he actually started it. You see, our rabbis teach us, ancient legends, that Abraham actually, if you will, resurrected an older teaching, an older path. In our Jewish tradition, we call this the universal laws of the children of mankind, or the 7 commandments given to the children of Noah, Noah being the progenitor of mankind after the flood. And according to our legends, Abraham, received this knowledge, wisdom, direction from Melchizedek, who, according to our traditions, was Shem, the son of Noah. Yeah, there are other traditions as well, and of course the Christians find that heretical, but okay, what can I say? That's the Jewish tradition, whether you like it or not. But the point is, Abraham passed down the original ancient teachings that he had learned. Some say he revealed it by himself in his pursuit of astrology. There's an interesting teaching about Abraham that he studied astrology because that was the family business. According to the legend, his father was an idol maker, and Abraham never understood idols. So he went into the idol shop one night and he smashed all the idols and put the hammer in front of one idol. And his father comes in the next morning and says, "Who the heck did all this?" And Abraham says, "Well, obviously must have been that big idol over there with the hammer. He got jealous of all these other gods and smashed them." And his father spanked Abraham and says, "These statues can't do that." And he says, "Well, if they're statues, why do you worship them?" Well, we have such a mythology about idolatry that we actually think people worshiped statues. We know that's not the case. In many religions around the world today, very much so in Christendom, you have images of what they consider to be divine and sacred, whether it be the crucifix of Jesus or the image of the Mother Mary and the like. Now, if you have some statue maker who is making that crucifix or that Virgin Mary, you know very well that they don't think that that statue of wood or stone is an actual God that you pray to and talks to you. They know it's a symbolic representation of a higher reality, what we would call an archetype. Well, in all due respect, in the ancient days, they knew this too. They weren't so stupid and primitive. What Abraham came and taught them was the message that was later codified at Mount Sinai, that God is above and beyond all of these images, all of these archetypes, whether they're the collective unconscious or not. Abraham's message was, there is this natural power. Yes, Abraham was considered to be a master astrologer, which is why our book's associated with him, and that he gazed and understood all the powers of the 12 elemental diagonals and their constellational correlations, that he understood the 7 double letters and the planet correlations and the foundational energies of the 3 mothers, and gazed above that to finally, he said, "Who's up there?" And the boy says, "I am the Lord God." And that is how supposedly Abraham discovered God. Is this history? It's a legend. It's a story. It doesn't matter whether it was history or not, because what we have is the byproduct of whether it's a legend or history, and that is the reality of the Abrahamic message. Now, many in the scholarly world want to say, well, Abraham never really existed. He was only a legend. Well, let me tell you something about your legend. Your legend certainly has influenced more than half the population of the human race, and has done so for millennia. So much for your legend. Okay, there's obviously something here, like the old saying, "The smoke is fire." But what was Abraham's teaching? Like I said, what he taught, whether it was independently discovered or learned, as our traditions say, in the schools of Noah and Shem, who were still alive when Abraham was young. Abraham learned the older way, the way that was passed down from before the days of the flood. Now, we get into some real interesting stuff with regards to that. Because you see, before the flood, not only did we have Noah, but we did have Enoch. Now, the Bible doesn't talk much about Enoch. It just says he was gone. God had taken him. But later, legend said that Enoch was the, teacher of the ancient world. Now, let's put this into a lot of context of modern times. When actually did the flood of Noah occur? Well, according to our biblical chronology, it happened like everything in creation within the last 6,000 years. However, from a more realistic point of view, meaning not taking the Bible so literally, especially when it's not meant to be, those chronological assessments of years might not be as literal as we think. And it might have happened a lot earlier. The point that we get isn't so much what date the flood happened or didn't, but that there was a pre-flood civilization. And it was global in effect. And we understand that there was even a pre-Adamic civilization here on earth that was suffering from its own destruction and devastation, the tohu vabohu that we've discussed in our Genesis lessons, which are online, as well as in previous classes in this course. One way or another, there were older teachings. One way or another, Abraham tapped into them. And that was the universal teachings of the unity of God and the unity of creation. That is the Abrahamic message. Now, we all know what Abraham became famous for, and that, of course, is circumcision. Abraham was taught by God, you're an old man, I want you to circumcise yourself. And he did. Now, where did circumcision come from? You might think God revealed it to Abraham and it did not exist in the world before then. Well, I think you better do your homework on that one. You'll find that that's historically inaccurate. The high priesthood in ancient Egypt, who Abraham had visited, they were the practitioners of circumcision. It's possible to suggest that Abraham learned about circumcision in Egypt. They might not have ever heard of it or seen it before. Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. But it did exist amongst the Egyptian priesthood. It was a symbol of a speciality to God as they understood it. And then there are some curious ancient legends about that Egyptian priesthood. According to certain modern teachings, that ancient priesthood, dating back, way back before Abraham, allegedly had its origins in Atlantis. Atlantis? Is there such a thing in Judaism? Well, yeah, actually there is. Whether it was pre-flood culture or pre-Adamic culture, let people argue about that one. Who cares? But one way or another, there was a highly advanced, technologically advanced civilization in ancient prehistoric times, which was destroyed in its own cataclysm. And one of the things that came out of that was the knowledge and awareness of the universal truth, the universal reality, that which today we call the Torah. Did they not have Torah? No, they didn't have the Torah. The Torah came on Mount Sinai. So in all due respect, the revelation of Mount Sinai and of Moses wasn't in ancient Atlantis, just like it wasn't in ancient Egypt or any place else. Now, we have legends that say, well, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob observed all the Torah from beginning to end, including all the rabbinic ordinances. Well, when you understand that that's meant to be taken symbolically as to the psychic and intuitive nature of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as being universally connected to the way, God, the Torah, through space and time, which is why they throw in the rabbinic stuff. This is to show us the nature of their psychic intuition and why we are considered to be their children. Some of us by blood, others by spirit. And that is why Abraham is mentioned here at the end of the Sefer Yetzirah. We've gone through the highest realms, which later Kabbalah called Atzilut. We went through the realms of what we call Biriah and later Yetzirah, and now Asiya, the physical world. So here we are at the end. Here we are with Avraham Avinu, Abraham, our father, not just father of the Jews, not just even father of the Christians or the father of our brother Muslims. It is the father of all who speak of the universal unity of us all. So Abraham is an archetype, a psychological archetype. His historicity is not only not in question, but is of complete irrelevance. Even if he didn't exist as a real person, it's only a story, fine. The story stands, and the truth of the story stands. Of course, we believe in the historicity of Avraham Avinu, but the message of Avraham Avinu is valid and true whether or not the historicity is subject to interpretation. That is what we need to understand. Our text here speaks about Abraham and says that he examined, he explored, he wanted to understand the nature of what was going on. And he left his home and went to the land of Canaan. Now, we get this impression from the Bible that Canaan was this unexplored territory. No, it wasn't. It was along the trade routes. People had gone there back and forth. Maybe the people from inner, like Haran and stuff, would have even gone there for, summer vacations to hang out by the beach. Who knows? But no, it wasn't unknown. It was just like the sticks. It was like moving out of the rich urban area to go into a rural area so you can be more private and free and back to nature. That was the nature of Abraham's move. And it says in the Bible that he left there with all the souls that he made in Haran. He made souls? Well, some will interpret that means he made golems. And we read later that he went and attacked a great army with 318 men. And some say, well, that's the numerical value of the name Eliezer, his servant. Some say they were the golem army. But I don't think that's what this verse meant. What it means when it says that he made their souls, meaning that he aligned them, taught them, calibrated them, educated them. And the Torah of Abraham supposedly has spread far and wide over the earth. We, in the biblical tradition, have the history as it's gone from Abraham to Isaac and Ishmael, and then from Isaac to his sons Jacob and Esau, and thus be inclusive of the three great Western religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. But there's another tradition that states after Sarah passed away, Abraham had other sons. And these other sons he taught wisdom to. It says in the Bible that he gave them gifts and sent them to the east. And that these sons of Abraham became known in a foreign land as the Brahmin. Abramin. And you'll find a number of rabbis who say that the original settlement in ancient India of the Brahmin culture, which brought the understanding of the unity of the Atman, the one ultimate God, were actually the children of Abraham. Is there any facts to this, truth to it? This is the ancient legends. There's even a greater legend. I don't remember the source. It might have been one of the books of Maccabees, that one of Abraham's, it was either one of these sons, I think, I don't remember the exact tradition, but somehow, somewhere, one of those other sons married into the famous Spartan tradition and made a connection between ancient Sparta and the nation of Israel, the likes of which we see coming back as referenced in the book of Maccabees. And out of that union, one of the children of the grandson or great-grandson of Abraham was none other than Hercules, the mighty Hercules, son of Abraham. So we see a Greek connection to ancient unification. We see an ancient Hindu connection to ancient unification. And certainly we see it within our monotheistic religions. This is the Torah of Abraham, and this is what he taught. So all of us, as children of Abraham, are as if like his children, the souls that he has made. We are those souls. And it is accounted as if that he made them. We're not gold, we're not empty shells. We're all full of the same singularity. Look at each and every one of us as glasses, cups of empty cups, teacups if you will, coffee cups if you will, and we're all filled with the same water. It doesn't matter what shape our cup is, how big or small, the emphasis is what's inside us. That is the unity, and that is the message of our Sefer Yetzirah. We have a few extra, loose ends to tie up, and that's what we're going to do in our final class next time. So I will see you then. Thanks for sticking with me through the course here. Come back for the next class, and let's finish it all up together.